If you're a coach working with burnout or you're thinking about becoming a burnout coach, you've probably noticed something over the last few years, right? Suddenly, everyone seems to be talking about burnout. Everyone's talking about neuroscience. Everyone's talking about nervous systems and regulation and polyvagal theory. So you might be wondering, has burnout coaching become crowded? Right? Is there anything new left to say? Or are we actually at the beginning of a new chapter? So in this video, I want to share what I've seen over the last 12 years working in this field and how burnout coaching has evolved, where I think we are today, and why I believe that the next evolution isn't about creating more burnout coaches per se, but it's about creating better burnout coaches. Because while the conversation about burnout has grown enormously, I'm not convinced, I'm certainly not seeing that our coaching expertise has grown at the same pace. Now, I never chose to become a burnout coach, right? I was a qualified and accredited executive coach. I was coaching exec leaders, boards, managers, and like many people, I then started talking about my own experience of burnout. I'd been an award-winning executive level HR director, leading multi-million pound projects, leading an incredible team and working in a toxic environment. My first burnout made me really seriously ill, and my second almost killed me. Now, the HR director who replaced me in that same toxic organisation died in her sleep, alone, whilst away on a leadership residential. And I started to talk about that. And I started to talk about that environment, and I started to talk about that workplace, and I started to talk about my own experience of burnout. And the more that I did that, the more other people recognised themselves in my story, and the more they started to come to me for coaching. And at the time, burnout wasn't something that most organisations talked about. It existed, and the research existed. It had been recognised for decades. But it wasn't part of everyday conversations in the way that it is now, right? People were far more likely to say that they were stressed or overwhelmed or busy or exhausted or simply not coping. And if I'm honest, I didn't fully understand what had happened to me at the time either, right? I knew something was wrong. I knew that I couldn't think properly. I knew that my body wasn't behaving as it should be doing. But I didn't have the understanding. I didn't have the understanding or the knowledge or the skills that I do now. But back then I began to learn, I began to join the dots. And over the last 12 years, I have watched the burnout coaching profession entirely evolve. The first challenge that I had was awareness. Helping people understand that burnout wasn't just a lack of resilience, it wasn't laziness, it wasn't weakness. Getting people to understand that burnout isn't just an individual issue, it's a systemic issue. Understanding that it's not about people just needing a holiday. And getting them to understand that burnout is much more complex. And over those 12 years, during that time, the conversation started to change. Organisations became more interested. The media became more interested. The World Health Organization published the burnout definition in 2019. In 2020, the burnout assessment tool was published. COVID accelerated conversations about well-being and balance and work. And suddenly, burnout wasn't hidden anymore. And that's a brilliant thing, right? Awareness saves people from believing that they're broken. And as awareness grew, so did burnout coaching. More coaches wanted to help. Many came into the profession because they'd experienced burnout themselves. And I completely understand that, right? Lived experience matters. Lived experience gives us empathy and compassion. It gives us insight. It allows us to understand burnout actually in ways that theory and textbooks and training just won't give us. But lived experience on its own is not professional expertise. And I think that's where the coaching profession, the burnout coach profession, now needs to evolve. Because today we're seeing another shift, right? Neuroscience is becoming mainstream. Nervous systems are being discussed everywhere. Again, polyvagal theory and safety and nervous system regulation and thinking about how we move and somatics and breath work. That's all really positive. And I'm genuinely pleased that these conversations are happening. But understanding the nervous system isn't the same as knowing how to coach someone that is experiencing burnout. Knowing the terminology isn't the same as making good coaching decisions and knowing what to do when clients with burnout are in the room. Because burnout coaching or coaching burnout itself isn't about like remembering scientific facts. It's about knowing what they mean when a real person is sitting opposite you. And this is where coaching burnout coaching has to head to, right? This is the direction that it needs to travel in. Because the next evolution isn't about more awareness. The next evolution has to be about greater expertise. It's about understanding the psychology, the physiology, the ethics, the boundaries, the behaviours, the workplace systems. It's about understanding prevention and recovery, understanding what burnout does to decision making and sense of self and being able to move forwards, knowing when to coach and knowing when not to coach, knowing how to adapt your coaching when somebody's cognitive capacity has reduced, knowing why one client would actually need challenge whilst another would actually need restoration. And those aren't things that we simply learn because we've experienced burnout ourselves. They're things that we continue studying and practicing and refining. So if I've learned one thing, just one thing over the last 12 years, it's this, right? The conversation about burnout has grown faster than our ability to coach it well. And I don't think that's a criticism, but I do think it's an opportunity. Because every profession evolves, right? First there comes awareness, then comes understanding, and then we start to build the expertise. And I believe that burnout coaching is now entering that third stage. That's the conversation I want to contribute to now and over the next decade. And not simply just helping more people call themselves burnout coaches. This isn't about changing your LinkedIn headline, but helping clients to become the burnout coach that they wish they'd had. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, right? Where do you think burnout coaching is heading next? Do let me know in the comments. And if you're interested in understanding burnout at a deeper level, right, not just what it is or isn't, but how to coach it safely and effectively, then make sure that you hit subscribe, because that's exactly what this channel is about. I will see you in the next video.